Hello, I have a new cinematographer.
Oh, nice.
Figured out how to control the autofocus.
Oh, did
So
you?
I downloaded the Logitech software.
That's awesome. Hi, Thomas.
May have to watch out for white supremacist Zoom bombing this evening.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Hi, guys.
Hello.
I have a new cinematographer who knows how to focus his cameras.
We are actually, hello everyone, good evening. Stephen, we were talking to your partner the other day and we were telling her that that was my favorite part of you joining the Zoom calls was your in and out. It just gave it great depth. And
Can you be careful not to knock anything
I won't knock anything over, I promise.
You'll be hearing from her attorney about the dog bites.
Man, that was crazy. Hi, Vince. Hi, Angie. Hello, Brad. Hi, Katie.
Hi.
Hi, Christy.
$157. Whoa.
Time is it? 7. We'll give it a few minutes for people to straggle in. I'm not going to knock anything over.
Are you sure?
Yes. I won't touch your plants. Hi, Isaiah.
Much love, much love. How's it going, everyone?
Good, good. We have a few more people that I think are going to straggle in a little bit, and then we'll open it up with public comment and then give you the floor. If that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I appreciate you having me. This is a pleasure. a blessing and an honor. Excuse me.
Yeah, I'm really happy you were able to give us some of your time. So thank you again.
No doubt, no doubt. How's things been going?
Pretty good. We've had a very robust summer in the Whitaker here.
Yeah.
It's been very interesting. I think the one thing that I can say is we have had a lot of community activity, which is really good. I mean, people are getting engaged one way or another. So, I mean, that part's been really good. I'm just speaking personally from what I'm seeing, you know.
Yeah.
Hi, Ian. Good evening. So 7:02. We'll give it a 7:05 or so. People, I'm expecting Eddie is going to jump in on the call.
Dan said he was.
And Dan, the neighbor. Yeah, apparently there's some spontaneous cleanups that are happening, and I don't know, some really nice people in this neighborhood and on this council.
No, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. That's what we need, more community activities together.
Totally. And it's great that it happens spontaneously. You know, it's something that we may talk about all the time, but some people just put it to fruition. They just make it happen. Well, should we give anyone a call? There you go, Stephen. So Brad, that post that you had made, Gabriel's right there, concerning the aerosol, very interesting. Especially since now we're changing, the CDC changed the testing guidelines, didn't they?
The CDC is broken.
I know, I couldn't believe that. I was like, yeah, when they're taking testing out of our...
A captured agency, as Nader would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When industry captures a regulatory agency.
Well, it's just interesting when, you know, science is showing that, you know, aerosol droplets and, you know, wearing a mask is preventing, you know, a contagion. And then you have a mandate from the government that starts to limit testing and also limits the reason people should get tested and basically takes it out of their hands. Yet if you have 30 million people that don't have health insurance, who's going to tell them that they should go see a doctor, you know, and get a test? It was just nuts. Hi, Gabriel. Good evening. And I just find that to be really, really catastrophic for a lot of people that don't have access to healthcare right now.
Actually,
There's that
if you go and-
$5 15-minute test coming up pretty quick.
Is it?
So say.
Yeah.
That was in the
If you
news
go
like
and look at,
yesterday.
if you look at Lane County's guidelines, they actually are following this new CDC thing, and they've been doing that since day one, in spite of what a bad idea it is. They don't test people that are in contact tracing.
Do you think it's economic?
There's no excuse to not do it now. With the Saliva Direct test out that has literally $1 of reagents, $1. Now you have staff time you have to pay, but it's $1 of reagents. There's no excuse for anyone to not have the testing up.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm at a loss. I mean, we're coming into a fall season where we're going to have the flu, and we're going to have, is it going to be the second round of COVID, or is it going to be the first? I mean, are we done with the first? I don't know. Well, it's 7:05. We'll let people straggle in as they come. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for showing up to this would be our weekly Whitaker Council meeting. It's not our board meeting and it's not our typical meeting. So I really appreciate everyone's time. Thank you very much. Without further ado, other than we have a special guest tonight, but before we get to him, does anyone have anything they'd like to say in the public comment period right now?
Yeah, I've been organizing some in-person neighborhood meetings. There's another one scheduled for this coming Monday at the gazebo at the Owen Rose Garden. If you want to come and meet some neighbors in person and just share and say hello.
Yeah, it was fun. The last time, I mean, it was sparsely populated, but the people that were there, I had some really good conversations. I thought it was a lot of fun. But yeah, thank you, Gabriel. Anyone else have anything? Well, we have a guest tonight, and Isaiah Wagner has given us some of his time. So I will turn it over to him. And thank you, brother. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much. It's a blessing and an honor to be with everyone here. And I appreciate you giving all of me a piece of your time as well. So just to open up the floor, I am Isaiah Wagner. I'm running for write-in candidate Eugene, Oregon's mayor. Pretty much my platforms are based off of affordable housing, fair taxation, low barrier shelters, which I think is a huge aspect into the Whitaker district, with helping most of the population of the unhoused and homeless community. I shouldn't just say unhoused, but also homeless community has kind of migrated into that area, because if you're from here, what I believe, I'm from here, I grew up in this area, so I believe that the Whitaker area has been an area that's been more socially acceptable for people who want to be themselves. Essentially, people who want to feel comfortable in their own skin. So, and that's why people gravitate to the Whitaker area. I know that my sister, who is now a trans man, loved the Whitaker area. That's where we would go to play ball, serve dinners, get food. We would attend the Whitaker Thanksgiving. There was times that me and my family, we had to eat at that Thanksgiving because we didn't have enough to put on the table for actual Thanksgiving meals. So it's been special to go back and actually serve at these meals that they've been having. So that's just a little insight of kind of what I've been about. Aside from that, pretty much, COVID is a huge thing. I think that a lot of people understand that we're going through this pandemic all together, and Oregon has kind of fumbled a lot of things in a lot of different ways for us as a community. I think that they mishandled this $500 checks. A lot of people, standing in line close to each other, not being able to get the funds necessarily needed. They could have direct deposited these funds in people's account without having to wait in long lines, and eventually, cause a lot of violence with that as well. And then now we have people going back to school. The 4J district is in your area, and we have a lot of kids that are going to be either hybrid or online, or a mixture or a combination of both. And people are going to be homeschooling. So I think that where we're going to be hit hardest the most is once we get out of September. A lot of the single parents in all the districts of Lane County, Calapooya land, are going to be affected hard. Majority of the single parents who don't have childcare. Just to lay it out right there. I mean, childcare, eviction notices coming to people, and a lot of families left on the streets. So we're going to up those numbers of 2,200 people. Maybe we could potentially even, I don't know the exact percentage, but I can see another 1,000 people getting on the streets due to COVID and due to having evictions and people having to go live with other parents and stuff like that. And so what that initially is going to do, it's going to affect the children who can't learn from home, who have troubled times learning from home. And so I think this may be an unpopular opinion, but with the facts that we've been given and some of the statistics and things I've seen with COVID, I don't see children getting it and dying from COVID. Now, the issue with COVID is about the children getting it, spreading around to us, and us spreading it to loved ones. And so that's a whole nother thing within itself that I can get into, and how we can kind of try to combat that. But I really think that without childcare and without kids going to school, we're going to see an influx of people on the streets, influx of people fighting for food, fighting for regular rights that we need as American citizens. And so we're going to be stepping into a real epidemic here shortly if we're not careful with this. And so I don't know what the current mayor is doing to figure out these next steps to work hand in hand with all the other officials out there to figure out what we can do as a whole. And like I said, so I'm not exactly sure what her plans are when it comes to that. I just know that my plans are to make sure that we fully support and fully fund education, and make sure that we really tackle getting kids the proper care and getting them back into school as well. And focusing on low barrier homes and shelters, meaning what that would look like is not the Eugene mission. A lot of people, where they find issue with this, is that they can't be homeless and be who they are. Essentially, if their sexuality doesn't line up with the religion of the Eugene mission, they may feel out of place, or not. They may not feel comfort at that location that they're going to visit. So we need to have something that's open for all people, and ways that they can feel accepted, and then we can give them, a way to stay get on a path and remove homelessness from something that's in their life, to get them housed and permanently housed. And so we need to get and have more low barrier shelters that are geared, that are non-religious based, so we can be, essentially opened and more accepting of the community that we live in. There's a lot more to that, to everything, of course, that I said, and I'm sure that people may have questions about that. But just so you guys are aware, like I said, I'm born and raised here, graduated from South Eugene here in town. I don't plan on leaving anytime soon. This is my family. This is my world. I love Eugene, Oregon, and I think that we could really set a standard for the nation with getting cahoots fully funded here, and getting officers off of our streets that don't need to be people policing, period. The drug epidemic and with the war on drugs and the homeless community, those two things kind of go hand in hand. They're kind of synonymous. So we want to definitely make sure that we can fuel each one the right way, and make sure that we're doing things the right way when it comes to that. And then also fully funding child crisis response teams as well, to make sure that we're handling homelessness and addiction early at an early age, and making sure that we can get these people the correct education and help that they actually need. So that's what I'm all about. That's what I'm trying to do here. And a write-in mayor is definitely a stretch to win any type of real election. But I'm here to say, enough is enough. I'm willing to do exactly what I need to do, and try to work as hard as I can to do to get into that position. But if I don't get into that position necessarily this year, I'm going to continue to fight and use whatever position I had this year to build off for campaigns to come. So
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions? I know you have another meeting at 7:30. So what we'll do is Jennifer and then Cy. And then did anyone else have their hand up? Okay, Jennifer, is that okay? Isaiah, take a couple
Yeah.
questions. Okay.
Yes. And I'm open to anything and everything. So please feel comfortable, even if you feel like it might be uncomfortable for everyone else. I'm more than able to answer any question that you have.
Jennifer, you're on mute, Jennifer.
Okay.
Okay, so I may have missed it, but Mr. Casey, can you tell me what your experience is?
No, here, hold on,
What?
I'll fix it.
No, don't worry about it.
Yeah, Isaiah Wagner. I'm sorry. He's utilizing someone else's computer, Jennifer.
Oh,
This gentleman is Isaiah Wagner.
okay, excuse me, Mr. Wagner. So can you tell me what your experience that you have to become a mayor of Eugene? Or have you addressed that already?
No, I haven't addressed that. So my experience is just as such. Born and raised here. I've grown up through the 4J school system. I've grown up through the healthcare system here in Eugene, Oregon. I've been on both sides of justice. I've been arrested and been in jail before, and I've been on the other side seeking justice. And so do I have a qualification of a background of a political science degree to back everything else? No, I do not. But I have an education of the streets and working and listening to hardworking people that are in the working class like myself. I do have a high school diploma. I'm very well read, and I understand pretty much the budgeting, the way that the mayor, what they hold, what they exactly can and cannot do. And so there's things that I'm willing to be a voice of the voiceless on this type of thing, because there's so much I can't actually snap my fingers and make happen, but I'm willing to fight to make those things happen.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sai?
Thank you, Chris. So Isaiah,
Awesome people.
I'm gonna mute Penny.
Okay, go
sorry.
ahead, sorry.
no worries. So I am a little familiar with the workings of the city. I've become a little bit more aware recently. I know that the city mayor has the mayor's role is seen to be a lot greater than it is. And I'm curious if you think that the mayor what you think the mayor's role is in Eugene. In addition to that, you mentioned budgeting experience, which my understanding is that is incredibly useful for doing anything in that part of the city government. So I'm curious to know more about your budgeting experience. And I know that there's a lot of people, possibly even people on this call, who have a lot of experience navigating through the governmental system of Eugene. And I'm curious if you've done any apprenticing or considered apprenticing with those people with experience, given that it sounds like you're coming into this situation with not a lot of experience with the governmental structure.
Thank you, Sal. That's a great question. Great questions. So I've worked in finance for over 5 years here locally. Pretty much reading into the nitty gritty of things there, it's kind of long and drawn out, but it's just about figuring out the right gaps within the income of where we're distributing money to say where we can either skim or shave off, but we'll also have to look into some type of new taxing in order to fund some of the ideas that may be very new, as in getting cahoots the funding that we properly need and getting 4J the money that we properly need. And so it's kind of looking at what we can scale back on in order to scale up on when it comes to the way I look at the budgeting system. And so that's kind of my background when it comes to that. Yes, like I said, I'm very relatively new at all of this, but I think a lot of people can agree, the people with the suit and ties that are working in office right now can't seem to get it right themselves. And so it's about time we have an everyday person who's actually working on the streets like everyone else and knows what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck, knows what it's like to skip certain things to make room for other things and not have to live a life that is so comfortable to where, you know, you can have $1,000 of upholstery in your home. So of just, you know, curtains and just ridiculous grandiose stuff, the things that, you know, the common people just aren't accustomed to. So that's kind of where I weigh my experience and just making sure I can voice it for those folks. And what was the other question that you had as well?
I was curious if you were basically connected with anyone regarding apprenticing
Okay,
within the governmental structure.
So I have not been in contact with anybody to do that at this certain time, but I can assure everyone here that I am open and willing to learn, to hear everyone out, and I'm a student of the world. I honestly wasn't going to announce running for write-in mayor this year. I was honestly trying to go back to school, finish up my education, and then try to make a wave at it in the next 4 years. And so I kind of looked at this as my chance and opportunity to try to get there now and gain the support now, and then continue to do that line of work to get to where I want to be at, whether that be in city council, whether that be in the 4J board, where I feel very passionate about being a parent of a child that goes to 4J. And so trying to overtake Jim Torrey's position in that regard. So like I said, I'm very, very new, but I'm also very honest. I'm very honest to the point to say that I will say I don't know what I don't know. And I'm willing to be with the right people in my corner. I have been with my lady for close to 6 years. She graduated from the University of Oregon with honors in general social science. She's gonna go back and get her master's as well. And so she's been on my team for a very long time and keeping me very well grounded with certain things that I need to keep up on and know when to close my mouth and know when to speak. And yeah, I hope that answers some proportion of those questions.
That was great. I was gonna say that was awesome. We have 2 more questions. Eddie, and then we'll skip over to Ian. Can you unmute Eddie? Eddie.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that question was so sharp and pointed. Like, should you apprentice? There are 2 types of people who have no experience that get into politics. And there's people like the Whitaker Council and like AOC, and they put their heart into it and they come from the bottom. And then there's people like Trump, and there's people like Mitch McConnell, and there's people, and yes, no, like, yeah, you might need experience, but the best thing is not having experience in the demon. And I really respect you for that. Yeah, and that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Ian?
Well, Eddie, I appreciate that so much. And that was one of the biggest things for my whole platform. It wasn't, you know, hey, let me get into this position because I think this is going to be pretty fun and games. I'm willing to work. I'm willing to work. Absolutely. I'm willing to listen, and I'm willing to act as much as I possibly can and ask other people to act, excuse me. And so that's kind of a huge thing with what I'm willing to bear and willing to, answer the harder questions, make myself available to the public, and really say, how can we really work all together? Because there's so many, let's be real, Whitaker, all the other wards are a lot different than just the Whitaker district. You got people in Sheldon that think that they are living life lavishly, and then you got the experienced, more college, older earthy folks in the South Eugene district, and then you got the Bethel area, which is a whole thing on its own. So we have so many different personalities in this drama of a city of what we call Eugene. and even Springfield, because typically you'd put both of them together. So it's really figuring out how we can bring this all together and make this a very fine stew. It's not just about the carrots, and it's not just about the peas, the steak. It's all about bringing it together to make a good stew.
Chris and Annika, y'all are muted.
I just,
Yeah.
Ian, and then Steven. Sorry about that.
Hey, Zach, thanks for coming tonight. I mean, I've seen you in the Whitaker once when y'all did a march starting at the Dewdrop Inn with Black Unity. That was a beautiful thing to see you guys come through here and invite the community in. I was really fortunate to be a part of that, and I thought it was a good indication of how you want to build community. Your platform seems like something that is going to be useful at any time. Could you talk to us a little bit about, and I know that you have to go at 7:30, so we don't have too long, about some of the inroads you've already built with folks that are doing some of the work in housing and homeless services, and some of the other areas of your policy platform, just to give us a sense of how we can engage right now and how you're engaging right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So the things that have really been big on my platform, other than affordable housing and other than low barrier shelters, because to be completely real, being very new at all of this and not having as much support as I really could have, being this really coming in this late of the game. So I don't really have as much as support as Lucy would have on certain aspects of who she's already worked with. I haven't worked with many people in that regards. I've only worked with Cahoots, and I've worked with CORE, and I've worked with just smaller organizations that are trying to help the community in other aspects. So pretty much a big thing for my platform right now, just because I'm a person of color. And I think the time is really now for the Justice in Policing Act of 2020. And that's something that I spoke with Ron Wyden on. That's something I also spoke with Peter DeFazio on. And those are, besides that, we also spoke about getting Cahoots fully funded. And so those are the changes I've been trying to make, and they've been on board with and trying to make as well. And it wasn't just, I'm not saying, hey, I'm the one who's made this happen. It's been so many people making this happen, but that's something that I've been advocating for a long time. So that was really my biggest kind of platform that I'm trying to stand on, is really trying to end the war on drugs here. And how do we do that? Getting Cahoots fully funded right now, and getting New Roads and Women's Space and all these other crisis response teams fully funded right now, and getting the correct facilities for these crisis response teams built so they can house and take care of them. But before we do that, we have to make sure that Whitebird actually has a plan for all of this money that they'd be coming into. Because there's a lot of people that have issues with Cahoots and trust, and seeing exactly what they're going to do and how they're going to be very different from police. And just because they don't have a badge and all this type of stuff, we got to make sure that we have community support when it comes to that. So when it comes to low barrier housing, it's going to be one of those things, I believe, as a mayor, that the first thing I would really want to do is get a panel of people I can trust and really know how to spearhead those issues dead on, straight on, and I'm working in conjunction with that. And so there's a couple of different things nationally that I would apply for, and that I would see if we can getting done here, since this is one of the biggest populations for homelessness when it comes to the city. So it's about getting the right people in place so we can get these things done the right way, because one man really cannot change the world. I need a team of people to do it. And I want to empower a lot more of my sisters to really kind of to take that flagship. And I really hope that, you know, if I'm not running for mayor in 4 years, I can get one of these sisters to run for mayor, because that's what I think Eugene really needs, to be honest. And so this is like I said, this is a platform to inspire more people to get out there and say, you know what, if this guy's going to take the chance, maybe I can take the chance as well, you know. And so I'm hoping I can create that as well.
Thanks.
Thank you. Stephen?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I'm sad that you had to go what you went through to become a household name in Eugene, but I'm really full of admiration with the way that you are leveraging your name recognition. You have my compliments on that.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else with a question I would really like to answer? And sorry that I have a lot of time, and I wish I could outline so much more about everything that I'm wanting to do and how it's going to look like, but
We'll come back.
It's very.
Yeah. I was gonna say, if people have questions,
What can I do to help?
Yeah.
they can add them in the chat and we can give them to you so you can answer them first thing the next time we have to talk.
Yeah, if you could type your
Sure.
email into the chat and
So I have a website.
okay.
It's
Cool.
www.isaiahwagner.com. And you can find all of my platform information, and you can find out how to reach me on there as well. Give me some time to respond to everyone, because you got to believe I have a lot of supporters and a lot of people with questions. And so we've been getting to everybody this week, actually. So the ball's kind of been rolling on that. And so we'll have a decent response time. It says about 48 hours, but we're probably going to change that to get like a 5-day. But yeah, it's just www.isaiahwagner.com. And if you could, I don't know who needs to include that in there, but.
I'll put it in the chat whenever we jump off.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And we're also
to be completely honest, you know, just because you see Isaiah Wagner as the face, my lady Chantel Robertson is so educated, and this is going to be a team effort, and a lot of people are going to know who she is. And you know, just because my name is getting written in doesn't mean that it's just Isaiah's doing this. I have a lot of good people behind me that are trying to help me out with this and making sure that we can do the right things. And so, and that's not just saying I'm a figurehead. Trust me, I think for myself. But I'm just saying there's a lot more to this pot. It can't just be me. So thank you all so much.
Cool.
I love
you
so much.
Thank you. Yeah, hope to see you again soon.
Wish you the best.
Yeah, we appreciate your time. Well, all right, y'all. That was fun. That was really nice. My friend Vince had reached out to me and asked if we had some time, and I was like, of course we do. We meet every Wednesday. So I thought that was a good time. It would be nice to have him come back again. As the election gets a little closer, or maybe as Eddie was saying, to reach out to anybody within this group, see if they want to help in any way. Well, other than that, Ian, would you want to move right into the segue? I don't think Anand's going to be here, but I guess you'll speak about our, no, I'm sorry, I thought Anand jumped in.
Hello.
About our grants and our maybe a new grant.
Yep. First, I wanted to talk about fall term at the University of Oregon. So today, the president of the university announced that the fall term is going to be primarily remote with online instruction, but some in-person labs, studios, and small classes are going to be open for in-person instruction. And residence halls are going to be open to first-year transfer and returning students who plan to live at the university. So, I mean, this has huge implications for Eugene. I don't know if y'all have, oh, my name's Ian, by the way. I'm an at-large board member on the WCC. Nice to meet everyone. Yeah, so I don't know if y'all have seen University of Michigan or UNC, Chapel Hill, or Notre Dame, but all of them kind of face planted when it came to reopening. They did it a little too quickly, and they didn't have a ton of preventative measures in place. And really it comes down to these institutions can't control the behavior of 18, 19, 20, and 21-year-olds off campus. And truthfully, none of us can. It's a really, dangerous prospect to think that you're super capable and competent enough to change people's behavior off campus. And a lot of these organizations, institutions of higher education are approaching COVID-19 prevention kind of like the way that people approach sex ed in the 1930s and 40s, that we're just going to teach people abstinence and then they're not going to do anything. And so this kind of interrelates with the grant update for a grant that we're receiving through the Oregon Health Authority. But also it really comes to something deeper, is that we need to be prepared as a community for COVID cases to spike in the next couple of weeks, particularly in the next 6 weeks, as folks move back to campus and students get tested. There's a lot of great news that everyone who's living at a residence hall is going to be tested at least twice. So you're going to be mandatory testing if you live on campus at least once before you move in. And then another time during the fall, you're going to have a test. And the university is doing a lot of work on the ground to make sure that folks are prepared to be able to test, to be able to do contact tracing, to be able to provide information to students. So if you're on campus, you're going to get the best in class resources, because the university is really committed to making sure that they open in a way which allows them to get additional revenue, that allows them to stay open in business. But we do have to kind of face the music when it comes to the university can't control students' behavior off campus, and this may result in a dramatic spike in cases, because at least at the beginning of the summer, when we saw students graduate, there was a huge spike in positive COVID-19 cases. And I think, students who have been cooped up with their parents are probably going to be angsty to go out to the bars and go out to party. So I just kind of wanted to open it up to conversation if people wanted additional information about what the university is doing, how to get more information regarding kind of the university's activities, and how to be able to move things forward. The last thing that I wanted to share is the university's COVID-19 alert level dashboard. And I just put in the link into our group chat. Brad, I think this is going to be of particular interest to you. It has a set of indicators that feed into the alert system. And a lot of it you can't see on the front end, but there are things that are monitored by Lane County Public Health. There's things that are monitored by the state of Oregon. There's things that are monitored by the university. And all of these organizations kind of work together to develop a threat level. And while the president said that the university is going to be opening for in-person instruction in January, nothing's certain, especially if there's a dramatic spike in caseload. But I thought that I'd just kind of open the conversation. If folks want more info about it, I can send it to you. I think the COVID-19 dashboard is probably going to be the best way to keep appraised of kind of the university's preparations for COVID-19. But yeah, I think we should all kind of get ready for the potential of an increase in cases in the next couple of weeks. Gabriel and Jennifer, do y'all have comments?
I'm just curious, do you know anything about WCC as far as their opening?
I do not. Does anyone else have any information about Lane Community College? Sorry, Jennifer, it looks like nobody here has any information about Lane.
I'll do some quick research on my other screen and see if I can come back to this in a minute.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're totally right that you can't control kids when they want to party at a house. To kind of like just be in better communication with bars and their protocols to mitigate the infection vector that way. I don't know. That was my comment, I guess. Is anybody here aware of kind of like if there's going to be an uptick in precautions at bars for college kids? That's a more pointed question.
Gabriel, I do not know, but I know that the university's community and government relations team is doing outreach to the apartment buildings around campus, to some of the downtown restaurants. But ultimately, it's not up to the bars to do temperature testing for folks out front. And yeah, I remember the day that bars reopened in Eugene. People were packed together like sardines. So yeah, you get a couple of drinks in you, and I imagine people are going to let loose. Does anyone have any other questions? Christy, Stephen?
I do know that where my daughter works at Round One, they're hiring more security to come in when the college kids come back in preparation for checking people at the door. And they're basically bouncers at this point, where if you have your mask off one time within the facility, you're booted, and twice in your 86th. So that's all I know is about Round One.
Cool. Stephen, then Brad?
I presume the university is doing outreach to the fraternities. Is that correct?
To my knowledge, yes, Stephen. The university government and community relations team has been doing targeted outreach to the Greek community, and a couple of other college campuses across the country. Fraternities and sororities seem to play a disproportionate role in the spread of COVID.
And alcoholism.
And sexual assault, yeah.
I don't think all of that's going to change very much, but it is nice that they're spending money in that direction.
Brad, you had a comment as well.
Yeah, I saw a few universities have taken the punitive approach. It's all stick. So when the students break their guidelines, they're suspending them and such. Is the U of O taking that approach, or are they going with more of a educational approach with the students?
Oh, I mean, I know that I can tell you what I know. I don't know if they're taking more of a punitive versus a reward-based approach. I know that they are rewarding certain behaviors in certain students. On campus, there's 3 different branches of the Corona Corps. And that's the Corona Corps are a group of students, some of whom do contact tracing student to student in partnership with Lane County Public Health. But there are others that do more of education. So they're kind of resource triaging, and they'll walk up to students. If you're wearing a mask, you might get a $5 or $10 gift certificate to whatever that goofy coffee place is that exists everywhere in the Pacific Northwest. Help me out here, Dutch Brothers. So they're creating incentives for people to engage in pro-social behaviors and really trying to leverage as much as possible how students can model those behaviors for other people. But I couldn't speak to if you're going to get suspended if you, get caught partying off campus or, break quarantine in the dorms. I should say that times are going to be tough at the university. The recession hasn't quite crept into state government just yet. It's going to hit harder probably in the next couple of months, like 6 months, 8 months. And I'm not quite sure if there's been dramatic decreases in enrollment at the university. But if online instruction continues to be the status quo, I don't foresee a ton of students wanting to continue paying for out-of-state tuition, which a not insignificant number of University of Oregon students come from out of the country and out of the state. So yeah, I think the situation is going to continue to develop, and the approach that the university uses is going to continue to develop. But just with like the couple of day lag time for symptoms to develop, I think it's going to be a lot of unknowns. So yeah, I think one way we can prepare for that is through our grant that I wanted to talk about next, unless other folks had additional questions or comments.
Justin, I can't find anything about Lane on their website. They make it so convoluted that I feel bad for anybody having to do anything with this, but it seems like for the most part, some of it's open, some of it's not. It seems like each department's different, so it's not really straightforward answer, unfortunately.
I'm sorry, were you talking to me, Annika? I spaced out for a second.
Oh, well, Jennifer was the one, I think, who asked about Lane, right? Lane Community College?
It was.
So, okay, so that's my answer, is that there's no real clear answer about what's open and what's not. It seems like every department's different. So, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think that just highlights how yeah, there's no standardized approach. 4J announced that they're not doing in person, but in Springfield it's different. They're doing K through third grade in-person instruction. So yeah, I think it may look different everywhere we go.
Yeah, it seems like they're like each department has to petition having certain stuff open. So I didn't really look through each department's thing to see what each one was doing, but there's no real answer about is it open or closed. It's definitely, and I think it's going to be constantly changing too, because there's still another month before classes start. So if they can scramble and think that they can figure stuff out the next month, they're going to not give us an answer until that last minute. All right.
Okay. Ian, anyone else have any other questions up to this point? All right. And you were going to talk to us about this other grant that's available?
Yeah, I first wanted to just thank everyone who came to the session on Saturday. We met a couple of us to discuss the goals and outcomes of the grant we are currently receiving. So we have $35,000 thereabouts for the first part of this grant period that lasts through September to do outreach, engagement, and education around COVID-19. And so the group provided some great insights around how to be able to design our goals and things to consider when we're spending the money. Brad posted today some face masks that we could buy. And we need to follow up and do some signing of paperwork. I'm going to be heading over to Chris's house tomorrow to walk through the things that we need to sign to move it forward. But I wanted to talk about two things. People's interest in assisting in the grant and what we're going to do as an organization in order to be able to authorize the expenditures that we're going to go through. Because as a board, we're not really set up to move things really quickly. There's a reason that boards are set up to move things slow so we can be thoughtful and deliberate. But there's going to be some opportunities for us to move a lot quicker. For those of you who don't know, the Whitaker Community Council is a designated nonprofit by the IRS and recognized by the state of Oregon as well. So we normally need a vote from the board for expenditures above $200 or $400, Katie, I forget. Two? She's saying two. I can read Katie's lips at this point if she's putting her hands like this and saying two. So the two questions I really have are, who wants to continue to work on this together, and how is the best way for us to be able to do that? Is it through Facebook? Is it through email? Is it through these meetings? And then also, how as a board should we authorize expenditures if we need to move quickly, or authorize agreements? Basically anything that would normally require a board vote. Sometimes we may not be able to wait until Wednesday to do that.
You're off mute.
Well, what I think is we have a committee. And we have a committee surrounding the grants. And I think that would allow us to move things a little bit faster. The committee would end up having its own budget. Same as the budget for WCAT. you know. I think other than that, you know, we would really have to have a full board vote on most things.
And if we wanted to spend money that we already have, I think that we would have to have a vote, like a full vote. But I think if we wanted to raise money for the purpose of this and like have that, I mean, and Katie would be the one that would know more, I think, about this. But I think that if we did raise money for the specific purpose, and then it wouldn't necessarily need to be voted on. Or,
well,
like, if we independently rate,
you would still need some quote unquote oversight, just in case we all changed,
right?
You know.
But that's what like Dovcat does, is they raise their own money. That's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm saying have it as a committee, you know, a committee that, because you are right. I mean, basically, we could potentially be hiring people, you know, for outreach, you know, setting up 1099s for people to be independent contractors, which we have to do. You know, historically, this has happened, and it was brought through the community council. That was during a time when, I mean, there was a budget of $100,000 and people were being paid to do, maybe not exactly things like this, but, yeah, I mean, I don't know how to get around, and I'm sorry, go ahead, Katie.
It seems to me that we're not talking about spending WCC money. We're talking about spending grant money. And we don't have to say
it's for the WCC though, you know. It's granted to the WCC.
But it's for the grant.
Yeah.
The glitch, as far as I understand, is just that we have to spend money and then apply to get reimbursed. Is that correct, Ian?
Nope. So there's new information. We're going to be getting the entirety of the $35,000 up front.
Okay. So if there was a committee to in charge of the grant, then I don't think they have to get board permission. It just seems to me that it's a lot of paperwork or a lot of.
Yeah, but we have to follow what our charter would say.
But well,
I mean, this is what I'm saying is, you know.
I think we'd still have to have a budget. Like, I still think that there would have to, and that's what the grant would require anyways, wouldn't it? Like,
we haven't done it before. We've gotten $3,500 grants for the Arts Commission, and we didn't have to have a vote every time money was spent out to pay for individuals to do the work for that grant. Just seems to me it's really different because it's not really our money, it's grant money for the grant purposes of the grant.
Right, but the purpose is for the WCC to prosecute these things for COVID-19, you know, and then.
So can I think what the process is, like, especially for grant writing, because when you write a grant, you write it very specifically of like, this is what we're going to use this money on, this is what we're going to use this money on, this is how we're going to spend it. Otherwise, they don't just give you money for free.
But who was awarded the grant?
So the grant writer, who I think, like, especially like in the cases of like the art walk, like, so that committee would come to the WCC, ask for the WCC support on this project to write the grant, and then so it would kind of like the WCC would still vote on it, but we would vote on the grant, like the entire grant, supporting the entire grant itself, not on allocating the money. And I think that's what the charter says, is that the subcommittees or the committees can do their own stuff, but they have to bring a budget.
Yeah.
Which is already in the grant, essentially.
It seems like we have a little work on this, but I, for one, am definitely into it. I'm sorry I couldn't make the meeting after it changed. I was down for the 9 a.m. Stephen.
Did the budget that accompanied the grant application include any percentage for WCC overhead and administration?
Nope.
Okay.
That's too bad.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, Al.
Hi, talking about grant writing, I just graduated from Small Business Development College and I work a lot on grants. I'm working on one right now having to do with the grant and fundraising committee for KEPW. So if you guys need any help at all from me at all ever, you know, hands-on and anything at all, I know the layout of making a business plan and getting grant writing and grant helpers and stuff like that. So if you guys need anything on that levels, as far as that goes, I just dove into that stuff recently and I'm learning a lot, and it might be helpful depending on how you do approach it and how you write it out, you get approved. And it is an awesome opportunity, and they don't require much. If you get approved, it's pretty awesome.
Cool. Thank you, Al.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So I'm here in Article 7, Powers of the Whitaker Community Council Charter, Section 4. I can share the screen with folks if they want to see it too. Chris, is that okay? Or
oh yeah. Annika has control. Sorry.
Okay. Then I'll just read this. All general.
Okay. You got it. I just made you a co-host. I trust you.
Mistake number 1. I was the infamous Zoom bomber.
You were it. I knew it. I could tell.
All general Whitaker Community. So our charter is the document that is used that it acts as our bylaws for us as a nonprofit organization, and we've had to file them with the Secretary of State's office for the state of Oregon before we became an organization. So you can think of them almost like our stone tablets or our Constitution. Annika has a comment.
Sorry, I just want to point out that this is the revised charter that never actually got voted on.
Good point.
Okay.
So probably go back to the one that we're currently operating under, which I don't know if I have the old version.
The red-lined one or a non-red-lined one?
Yeah, I have one version of it right now.
It should be on our website.
Oh, I'm looking at the old one now. It's the same. We just moved powers to a different part of the document.
Well, the expenditure is a different amount. I know that.
It's 200. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Gosh.
So
it's very clear right there.
Yeah, I wanted to say that all general Whitaker Community Council fund expenditures must be approved by a vote of the council, except that the council may allow the board or its delegate to authorize expenditures below $400. Grants or money secured to fund specific projects or programs and which have itemized budgets, which this one does, will not require Whitaker Community Council approval for expenditures within their budgets. Budgets for monies from grants and other sources shall be approved by the Whitaker Community Council Board before expenditures commence. In addition, the board will establish a fiscal process, including budget expenditure authorization and internal fiscal control system. So that's really what I'm calling for tonight, is a system where we can move fast, where we trust each other, where things aren't going to be coming as a surprise. What I heard from Chris, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to create like a committee around the grant. I think that we should use the Health and Human Services Committee, Public Health and Safety Committee, because it seems just like a perfect fit for what we're doing. But we need to move really fast. And August the 31st, we need to submit our budget document and our invoice, our first invoice, and we need to submit all of the paperwork needed to be able to receive these funds. So Katie, I've sent to you the information previously for the grant. I don't know what your schedule's like tomorrow, but Chris and I are going to be sitting down and kind of going through stuff line item by line item. And I think it'd be helpful if we brought you in the afternoon around 1:30, just
Friday.
so the three of us, Friday at 1:30. So that we could, so we could talk through the component pieces of what we need to do, because some of it might require financial controls beyond what Chris and I know. So specifically what I'm looking for tonight is just clarification around what the budget process is involving budget expenditures. I can bring the grant budget that I submit on Monday, and it's nothing different from what I've shown before. Prioritizing contact tracing and community outreach. It's going to be, it's going to be the same stuff we talked about. But I'm wondering how much internal control we should have regarding expenditures when we need to move really quickly. And this is going to take up more and more of my time. Grants to write, sure, they take, a while, but administration is really what takes up the bulk word of time. So I want to be able to make sure that we're following our charter for a lot of different reasons, including the risk that we have to be audited by the IRS. It's pretty rare, but it could still happen. So I want to make sure that what we're doing is legal, and anytime that we're expending funds, it's with the board's consent. So I don't know what the best process is moving forward, but I'm hoping after tonight, would have a clear idea of how to be able to do that, just because things are going to heat up really fast, and we need to spend $35,000 by the end of September.
What I'd like to do is I'd like to hire an attorney to take a peek at this and give us their 2 cents, considering it's like $35,000. I mean, it would be nice to know, like, what, especially if we're going to continue in this process, like what we can do to protect ourselves as an organization and to move forward, especially with the language we have written. And then, I mean, wouldn't it make sense to at least ask someone to take a peek at what's going on?
If you have clear questions, that's kind of vague, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll develop some clear questions, Katie. But yeah, I mean, if we're going to have, because we could potentially have things run under our 501c3. We could have a...
Let me just make this absolutely clear. I applied for the grant under the Whitaker Community Council's 501c3 because that's what the board authorized.
Right.
So it is very much under the Whitaker Community Council. If we violated any laws, we may be held accountable, but the nonprofit certainly is. Like from here on out, from when we submitted the grant and we were accepted, it is the Whitaker Community Council's grant through and through. So I understand definitely the need to be able to get legal counsel to be able to clarify how to be able to do that.
Yeah, as the chair, I'm thinking that that's probably a good way to proceed if we're going to continue in the future receiving grants, and how we can process them. I think someone would be able to. So how about this? Can we, and I want to move forward quickly too with this, Ian, but let's also authorize talking to someone to take a look at this problem. Anyone opposed to that? Anyone want to second that, or?
So I just have a point of clarification. So I have a friend who's an attorney. She's passed the bar here in the state of Oregon. I could easily reach out to her, but we would need like very pointed questions for her to Katie's comment.
So let's talk on Friday about that then.
Okay.
Because we'll meet each other Friday morning.
Yep. I still need to submit the budget on Monday. I need to submit our invoice so we receive the funds. And as soon as we receive the funds, we need to expend them. And we're already behind the 8 ball on this. We just need to move so quickly.
Okay. All right. Did you have something? I'm sorry.
Chris, my camera's not working.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, Thea.
So sorry, I've been trying to fix it and it's not working all night. So how about, have you guys talked about your signs, that you already have the signs, but you don't have the messaging? Because that would be helpful out around the neighborhood.
Yeah, I agree.
Have you discussed it at all or not?
We have. Not tonight though, but yes, we have.
And Ian, that would be an appropriate use of funds, correct? To get those sandwich boards out around the neighborhood with messages?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm
So
sorry.
do we need people to come up with messages?
I think we have a bunch of them, but we could definitely include more.
You're fine.
What do you think, Thea?
So Ian, do you need a timeline so that we can get them to you? Is that something the board wants to do?
Bye, Brad.
Stop.
Oh, Brad's gotta go.
Stop. Get out of here. Get your dog.
So Ian, if they wanted to make messages for those sandwich boards, do you need a timeline for that?
Nope, not right now. Because we can't move forward with the messaging until we get the grant process and expenditures. I don't know what authority I have to be able to submit the budget documents. Am I acting on behalf of the board? But we're in this real gray area that we need to decide as a board how we're going to be able to move forward. Because I submitted the grant on behalf of the board, and as I continue to have meetings about the grant and continue to look at the documentation that we need to submit to the Oregon Health Authority, it's a pretty critical juncture. And Thea, what you're talking about is totally prescient and really important. But in order for us to be able to move forward to the point where we can spend the money, I need to have a very clear understanding from the board's perspective around how much authority is delegated to me to act on behalf of the board with respect to this grant. And I have no clarity around that right now. And it makes me feel both really uncomfortable and makes me feel like we're not going to be able to benefit from this, and our community is not going to be able to benefit from this, particularly knowing that cases are going to shoot up probably towards the end of the month.
So you're asking for what though, Ian? I mean, if we meet every week, if we could meet about other things, why wouldn't we want to include the board, which the board numbers few people until our election, about these budgets? Or I mean, I don't understand, like, are we trying to seek fewer opinions on like what's going to go into the budget or how we're going to spend the money? I don't understand. I mean, that's where I'm a little confused.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Ian, if I'm understanding you correctly, you need to figure out if it's okay for you to authorize things, or we need to the board needs to designate someone to authorize things. And the checkbook uses 2 signatures or just 1, guys?
Two. I'd like to clarify that.
So is it 2, Katie?
That's what I'd like. I have my hand raised to talk about. Are you done?
Yes. Well, I was asking Ian if he needs clarification. So does it, like, do we need to say, hey, Ian's okay to go forward, or do we need 2 people, Ian, to make you comfortable?
Ian's frozen. Oh, no, he's not.
Nope.
Could I answer at least part of that? It seems to me, 1, we need to set up a budget, and I suppose the board needs to approve that budget, which is in the process, right? And 2, we could set it up so that the Health and Safety Committee is the committee that deals with the grant. We normally, as a courtesy, require 2 signatures on a check, but we could say for this grant, it could be 1 signature. I could meet regularly with Ian and kind of just have a quicker response to spending the money as outlined in the budget that's been already approved. So it's not like every time he wants to spend money, it has to be approved.
Right, but here's another thing. Why are we changing everything around? I mean, I'm just saying we have some things in place. Right now, we can't vote on anything because there's only 2 board members that are on the line.
There's 4 of us. Katie, you,
Oh, one, two,
me.
three. So is that a quorum for tonight?
Did Brad leave? Eddie
Yeah.
left?
I mean, I'm really confused. Why won't we work as a board on this together? You know, and
Because it's slow and he's concerned about how quickly we can move on this.
Well, then we'll
I mean,
have
look at our
meetings.
sandwich boards. 2 months later and they're not even out. We just don't move.
Katie, is that because
No,
of
I'm
me?
not.
I'm just saying.
this has
No,
to-
this is a process that is going to proceed beyond all of us. What we need to do is work as a board. I don't understand, if we're meeting every week and things need to move faster, why is it that things need to move even faster than that? I'm just confused. You know?
So I could provide a little bit of clarification. I think Jennifer has a comment first.
We can't hear you.
Jennifer, you're muted.
Thank you. I'm just curious what your pointed questions are going to be to the attorney. For some reason, that's lingering in my head. It sounds like you're going to need to approach an attorney to get everything clear, but you need pointed questions. Am I misunderstanding that?
Sort of. That was us just thinking about how we're going to process this and then into the future, just to make sure that we're doing it legally, and then maybe helping us with our internal structure.
Can I ask some clarifying questions to Ian, and just because I'm really confused about kind of how this process is. I mean, I've been at the meetings and I've listened, but like I just feel like I've gotten broken pieces of information, so I'm not really sure exactly like where we're at. So this $35,000, we're pretty much, it's promised to us, but we haven't, like, is our plan of action to do the cloth masks and that's it, or is it like, how is that supposed to add up to $35,000? Like, I'm just kind of, I feel like I missed something along the way here. Like, do you mind just kind of backtracking a little bit and just like telling us like where we're at sort of with this process and what specifically you need to do by Monday? And so what kind of powers you're asking for, if that makes sense? Like,
Sure. And I can submit to the board for a vote before Monday when the budget's due, for what I'm asking for. And it would be in compliance with the charter, saying that this is the fiscal process and budget expenditure authorization that I'm asking for. And I've done dozens of hours already on this grant, and we'll do dozens more. Right. For those of you who have not written grants before nor administered them, and a little bit of context too, I was previously the executive director of a nonprofit organization, and I currently write and manage grants as part of what I do, kind of my work outside of work, and it just takes a long time. Also, as I spend more and more time working on this with Anand, who unfortunately isn't here, it's going to become exceedingly more complex. You know, for those of you who were on the call on Saturday, we talked about our 4 different target populations. The 3 that we submitted as part of our grant: elders, renters, and the unhoused, as well as an additional population that we thought about targeting, which includes students. So in the outcomes and goals document that I got feedback on, that I'm going to work on this weekend, really frames how we're going to work on our goals and achieve our objectives. And so for the unhoused population specifically, one of our goals is to provide every unhoused person in the Whitaker with at least 2 cloth masks. So that's the cloth mask piece that Brad was mentioning previously. So it's a way for us to be able to target vulnerable community members and provide them with the information and resources they need to reduce infection and reduce transmission. So that's kind of like the mission, overarching mission of the grant. You know, I had trepidation, you know, submitting this thing because I kind of wrote it off the cuff with board support. And I think now we're just kind of facing something that, you know, more established organizations have the infrastructure to really support, both grant writing and grant getting. Like, I'm doing the work right now with a staff member. Like, I'm playing the role of, like, I don't know, grants administrator or, you know, the executive director of an organization, you know, representing the Whitaker Community Council on these call meetings with the Oregon Health Authority and with Lane County Public Health, getting information as well as kind of doing project management to be able to find out when we need to submit things and what we need to do. I think for me to be comfortable, what I would like to do is provide to the board an update of where we're at and where we need to go and what I'm asking for us to get there. You know, as I told Chris earlier and told the board via Facebook, like I'm going to be doing less board work, you know, towards the end of the year, come December, so I can focus on graduate school because that's really something that I want to do personally. And, you know, right now I'm spending at least 10 hours a week, probably more, just on the grant. So, you know, I don't want to go to a bunch of meetings. I just don't want to do it. I'm spending a ton of time working on the grant, and I want to spend my time taking care of myself and doing other things that I want to do. But I want to make sure that other board members feel comfortable with their input being valued, feel comfortable knowing where we're at, and feel comfortable knowing that, you know, we're not expending money in a way that the board hasn't already approved. So go ahead, Thea.
Sorry, I don't have my camera. Are you allowed to be paid any funds at all out of this grant, or is anyone allowed to be paid funds out of this grant? Because you are spending tons of hours on this. And I understand how grants work just from being in education. And it's a boatload of hours and a boatload of bureaucracy. So does the grant allow that? Because I didn't see the grant, so I don't know what it allows. Does it allow to pay someone to help administer it or not?
So I just wouldn't feel comfortable paying myself. I think that's a pretty dangerous precedent to set being a board member.
No, I know, but that's what I was asking.
Yeah, nor would I feel comfortable resigning and then being hired as a paid staff member.
Right.
The grant does allow us to pay folks. And I was hoping that we would pay unhoused persons to do outreach to the community and pass out trauma-informed information, hopefully targeting the folks that live in the Conestoga huts that are being run by community-supported shelters here in the Whitaker.
So have you and Anon come up with a list of things that we should do with the grant?
Yep. So I and Anand have developed a set of goals and outcomes related to those goals that I briefly went through during the last meeting, or maybe it was two meetings ago. No, I think it was the last meeting.
It was.
Yep. And so that was the working draft, and then I got additional feedback on it on Saturday.
And I do want to point out, I think Chris and I both wanted to be at the meeting on Saturday, but because of that last minute change in time, we really weren't able to. So maybe, I don't know how we can kind of proceed to give you feedback, especially like you said, you're not wanting to do a bunch of meetings. So how can we give you feedback? When can we give you feedback by? And like, I'm thinking that any feedback that we get should probably have like, not just be like, I don't know, should be solution-based as well to kind of help take a load off you.
So
yeah,
I'll just put it out that I've never done grant administration this way with so many cooks in the kitchen. And I'm just like, I have like such trepidation around doing it just because this is the way that the worst ideas like come to the fold. I feel like I have been in situations before where things have been unsuccessful because there's too many hands on the wheel. But I think the best way to be able to get feedback is understand from the board's perspective what feedback mechanisms work the best. Is it Google Docs? Is it email? Is it printed material? How much time in advance folks need to be able to review something and give substantive feedback? And then what's the best way to vote? Because we're going to need to hold votes on some of it. And I don't know what we're going to need feedback on versus not. Yeah, if I knew how much time this was going to take, I probably wouldn't have written the grant in the first place. But in about 5 minutes, I'm going to propose that we, submit another grant to Oregon Health Authority. So, yeah, I think that these are the growing pains of any nonprofit organization, and I think one of our weakest points is that we think of ourselves too much as a neighborhood association and too little of us as a nonprofit organization. we have real capacity to gain significant revenue from grants, whether they be through the state, like Oregon Health Authority, or from corporate philanthropy or private foundations, and impact our community that in ways that we used to, like in the 1970s when we got funding from HUD, Housing and Urban Development, to build East Blair Housing Cooperative. And NEDCO is one of the spin-off organizations to come out of that. And I think it speaks to our rich history of being able to do impactful work and raise substantial money. Like Chris said, the $100,000 budgets were a thing of our past, and it could be a thing of our future. But it really depends on our ability to work together as a board, to read the documents that are posted, and to engage and do more work probably than some of us are currently doing, and more work probably than some of us are willing to do. And so that's a conversation too for our future board and kind of our strategic direction. Is this something that we want to continue to do? Do we want to continue to get grants, or do we want to not do that? Do we want to kind of stay at the scale that we're currently at? So like kind of like
or make a business out of it, you know, like NEDCO. That's another way that we could spin this over too, you know, because as we proceed, and I agree with you, in the future, we do have an impactful community. But it could possibly be a way, you know, to form another company like NEDCO. And it might actually be advantageous for the community, because then, like you're saying about, you know, it does take a lot of time to do all of this. But if the people that were doing it were actually getting paid, and they were doing good for our neighborhood, and we provided a way for someone to make a living out of this, and they did nothing but benefit us, I agree. Like, as we proceed into the future, it is something beyond, you know, a group of citizens, you know. But right now is a time, I think, that we could start thinking about that too, you know, like
win-win community.
Yeah, but like Thea was saying about, you know, having things in the budget for administrative costs. I mean, we can start paying somebody to do contact tracing. We can do all of this. So, I mean, maybe our question is, how do we turn this into something bigger for our community? You know, because if we did spend every meeting talking about this for the community council, we would probably, you know, we'd miss a few things. I mean, maybe we should take some notes and think about or listen to some conversations about when NEDCO first came about and some of the talking points from them, because this is big. This is the time.
Can I ask a question and then I have to go, please? From what I gathered and what little I know, Katie proposed doing a one signature, which would cut time, and Ian doesn't feel comfortable because he went into this and he got it, which is successful, but he has 35 days to get it all spent. Am I following that correctly? It's like maybe the next grant you can have more experience and answer the bigger questions that you mentioned, Chris. 35 days is not a lot.
Yeah, I think that's kind of maybe a gist, Jennifer. Okay, well, maybe we could just move on to the second part of what you were going to say, Ian, about a potential grant that's coming up.
I still need to focus. I'm happy to, but we haven't crossed the finish line yet on this conversation, I feel. And so what I'd like to have the board, and do we have a quorum tonight, Annika? I don't know how many board members.
We barely do. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have to.
So.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is have us as a board vote online this weekend about a fiscal process, which includes budget expenditure authorization for me for the grant, which would spell out procedurally how much time the board needs to be able to weigh in and what the board needs to weigh in on. just so I can feel comfortable doing this. Because right now I'm in the void of vacuum of space, and it feels pretty lonely and cold in the vacuum of space. And I want to work with you, but I don't think we know how to do this effectively. I think it's in our DNA because we used to do it, but I think our current board makeup, we're just used to working on different things. And honestly, this is a really bad example of a grant. Like Oregon Health Authority has, and they're transparent about it too. They're like, we're moving really fast. We're making all these mistakes. We don't know what we're doing. So
would 48 hours give you enough time if you were to say, I need decisions within 48 hours or 24 hours?
I think we should weigh in on it on a board. I think that what I've heard tonight, and I apologize for switching the time on everyone. I had a hot date on Friday night, and I needed to move the meeting time to later in the afternoon on Saturday. So it was a totally selfish reason. That's a
good reason.
So I want to hear from people around what they need, folks on the board what they need, with respect to this grant in particular. But I can on Saturday provide the budget for the grant, and I can also provide the motion to the board for the fiscal process, which includes budget expenditure authorization. Because I need to have the board's support so I can do my job well, which is administering and leading the grant. But I don't feel like I can do that well without having a process for the board saying, yep, I feel confident with weighing in on what's provided. And I think we're going to experience some growing pains. Hopefully we'll still be able to have a beer with each other after this. But that's what I'd like to suggest tonight, is that on Saturday, I submit to the board the budget, the outcomes and objectives and goals document, as well as the motion for establishing a fiscal process, including budget expenditure authorization, just for this grant. And I think that, to Jennifer's point, and to your point, Chris, hopefully this will lead to a deeper discussion around, well, what are our priorities, and do we want to hunt down grants, bigger grants, and do we want to, be, entrepreneurial and create spin-off organizations like NEDCO, that's now Dev Northwest, or create new businesses. But for me right now, what I'd like to do is have the board vote online on the budget, which is due Monday, on the outcomes, goals, and objectives, which isn't due, but it's going to be due soon, and just talk about a fiscal process, that includes budget expenditure authorization. And if we need more time on that one, then I totally understand. I can feel uncomfortable for another couple of days, but definitely need to have a deeper understanding of what the board needs to feel comfortable as we move this grant process forward.
Okay, I guess I'll go first. So, oh shoot, I forgot my answers for all of this. Oh yeah, so for me, like personally, like I'm not gonna try and talk for the board here. But like my kind of thoughts on it, like looking at sort of the slideshow that you put together, not being able to attend the meeting on Saturday, like I do want to offer some feedback, because I think there's certain things like in like what you were talking in the goals and objectives that like need to be poked at a little bit more. And so like as far as a process for me that would work, like I would love to give you like any feedback by like Friday, like personally, and then if you want to talk about it more, we can talk it out. Like I'd be open like to like coming up with like a time over the weekend that we can do that, just to get sort of this chunk done out of the way. And then like in the future, I think as long as you have like at least like a weekly like work session where people can actually come in and like bounce ideas off each other, and then everybody breaks apart and like does their own work, I think that'll take a lot of load off of you, while like sort of making like these hour-long meetings like really manageable. Like, and I've done stuff with that, like with class projects where, I mean, it's not the same as grant writing, but when you're putting together like a total recommendation and proposal and like professional project, in grad school, like it does end up being something sort of like where you're doing this collaborative project, and it's challenging, but it can work as long as it's done by people that are motivated to do the work outside and then actually bring it back. So that, like I said, might be something for like a future process that could work for you. And then I forgot the last thing that I was going to say, so I'll think about it again and let you know.
Steve?
As a non-board member with quite a lot of experience with non-profits, it sounds to me like the fiscal controls required here is that once the board has approved the budget, the board should then delegate to the Health and Safety Committee responsibility for expenditures with 2 signatures, say Anand and Ian, up to a certain dollar amount. And then above that dollar amount for any individual expenditures, it should come back to the board. But that's just my suggestion.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, I'll take that into consideration when I'm writing the motion to the board. And I just wanted to say thanks so much for everyone who's being patient right now, because it's like, I don't know. I don't know if the minutia of grant administration is of interest to everyone. But I think the work is really important. The work is making sure our most vulnerable neighbors and community members have access to the information and the resources they need to stay safe. So yeah,
it's life or death, so it's worth discussing.
Yep. And yeah, I just want to make sure that I felt heard tonight, because I've been, really trying to like stay above water, and there's a lot of other things that I'm working on in addition to this. So I needed to have a chance to kind of tell people where I am at, while at the same time listen to the board too. Because something that, I've felt in the past is that, I can post things on the board Facebook page, more than a week in advance and not get feedback on them. And then, people come into the board meetings, not having read the motions or whatever attachments I'm talking about. So what I'm hearing now, though, is that people have a deep commitment to making sure that their, opinions are heard, that they have a chance to provide feedback. So I just want to make sure for the board members that are here right now that that plan that I proposed earlier of me submitting the budget, me writing up a proposed fiscal process. I'm going to crib from what Stephen just said and ask Katie if she has any ideas too. And then also include the goals and objectives document, because that we don't need to submit on Monday. But I want to make sure that we all have a chance to weigh in on what our goals and objectives are, because we're going to have to do, submit this really quick. And again, like, yeah, I need to take on less right now, not more. But I do feel that this opportunity is one that we can't really pass up for a lot of different reasons, some of which I explained at the beginning of the meeting. We're going to have, up to 20,000 kids, 18 to 22-year-olds come to Eugene pretty soon. So we need to make sure that we're working together to prevent the spread of COVID, because it feels like it's happening in other cities around the country. Does that sound like a plan that folks are okay with, for me submitting the stuff on Saturday on the Facebook page and then weighing in on it for a vote before Monday on just the budget piece of it, so we have more time to think about the fiscal control piece and have more time to think about the objectives and goals and stuff?
Yeah. So, sorry, we do have to vote on it either through a telephone call or a Zoom call. It's not really, and like doing it just on the page doesn't really work. So I would suggest maybe putting a poll in to see how many people can attend at different time slots, and maybe pick a time that way. Because we can
we not vote on Facebook?
It has something to do with the fact that all the answers don't come in at the same time. So there's something about email that works too. But yeah.
Steven?
One technique we've used in organizations I've been with is to have a motion and a second and a vote, and then keep the vote open for a given amount of time for those that are not at the meeting to vote after the meeting. So keep the vote open for 24 hours or whatever after the meeting.
Yeah, we are in unprecedented times here with our Zoom calls and our non-being in person at all. I mean,
I just worry with this amount of money that we wouldn't want to do it the wrong way.
What if we just did it live in a Google Doc or?
Can I ever help with also, can I do anything like interview Ian and Chris and do any of this and PSA it for the radio or anything?
We'll talk about that in a little bit about it. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, we can definitely use some PR work in a little bit. Let's try to figure this out if you don't mind.
And we just need board members on to vote. So we don't need to make it open to everybody in the general public. So that's why I'm saying when you submit the stuff, maybe now, we can just create a poll, figure out how many people, like what time works best, and all we need to do is jump on for 5 minutes, vote, and then jump off.
Well, hold on. What if you submitted it and then we just had how everyone voted? Is that what
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't really, that's not go by the charter or by Oregon legal standards. If we could get Dennis on and I'm sure he could tell us.
No.
Ian, do you have a time on Saturday that you need, and you can put a poll up that how many board members can be on the board page?
I'd rather do it on Sunday because I feel like what I heard tonight from people is they need time to digest stuff, and that people do want to give feedback on it, but it's like that folks need time to digest stuff. So if I posted the budget, and the budget's going to be bare bones. I mean, it is going to be it's going to be the same thing we saw before when we submitted the grant, but now it's in a different.
And Ian, I'll just be honest with you. One of the reasons why I like having a full board is, and please hear me out, everyone. I've read Anand's survey, and before we push something through like that, I would like the board to have a little more control over the product that we're putting out. You know what I'm saying?
So,
this is a real tough conversation for me to have right now. You know, and it's not that I have all the answers, but some things need a little bit more scrutiny. You know, before we Can I finish, please? No, I can't finish.
Yeah.
Before they get green lighted. So, just so you're understanding where I'm coming from with some of that, and it's not a negative place. It's just I don't know.
Sorry. Here's kind of
because it's a skeleton, like you're saying,
this is what
of a budget at a certain point, and that's what my concern is. And I'm sorry that I had to use that as an example. Oh, I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
Okay, so like what that kind of made. Okay, I just connected some dots. Okay, so with the charter saying that like an itemized budget, if the budget that you're proposing is really bare bones and it doesn't have any sort of like itemization to it, then I think that that's kind of a no-brainer to approve, like depending on what it looks like. And I've forgotten what it looks like, so if you could share it again, like that would be awesome. But I think we would have to go through the process of approving every single like budget item, like if you're going to do it just one at a time. But if you can take that budget, or if we as a committee can take that budget and turn it into an itemized budget and have the WCC vote on that like that, then you free up all this opportunity to actually spend the money. So I think kind of how specific or how vague it is really going to like determine the sort of the fiscal policy that we're able to use. Okay, do you mind sharing that to the Facebook group? I haven't. Or is it in there already?
Sorry, I've just realized I've been talking on mute. So this is shared to this is what we voted on previously. It's in the file section.
I'm looking for it and I cannot
It's
find it.
WCC COVID-19 CBO funding application. It's June 25th at 10:22 a.m. So what I would be sending for Monday is the same budget we proposed previously. I would be recommending that we increase the amount that we're applying for, both in the education, outreach, and engagement category, as well as the personnel category, so that we have people doing contact tracing. So, I mean, this is, you know, the direction from the board was apply for both categories, both contact tracing and for education, outreach, and engagement, but prioritize contact tracing. We didn't get contact tracing. If we submit a budget, and if, you know, Christy and Anand and Brad are willing to share with me their resumes, I think we can make a strong case for why, you know, 2 nurses and a former microbiologist would be, you know, great people to give more resources to, so we can hire contact tracers to work in tandem with the county. So the budget is going to be itemized, but it's not going to be, I mean, it's a single page, you know, you could read this with your morning coffee or with your evening beer. So it's, yeah, it's just an example of, you know, I need this really quickly now. I feel comfortable now moving forward. I feel like, at least from the 4 of us that are here, you know, I've heard from the 3 of you about what you need from me to review. And I would just need, whenever we do a vote, have a commitment from everyone that, yes, I'm comfortable with this being moved into the Public Health and Safety Committee. Yes, I would need to have documents that need to be reviewed this many days in advance, and I would provide it, you know, my feedback this many days in advance to Ian, and that Ian and Anand, or the Public Health and Safety Committee, have authorization to spend up to this amount without board approval, and any additional monies would take, you know, we would have to, we'd have to take it to the board for a vote. And I, you know, I'm just kind of like speaking off the cuff here, but yeah, I feel comfortable now moving forward, knowing that at least from Katie and Chris and Annika, what you need in order for us to move forward. And Chris, I hear you around how different perspectives add value. Yes, I totally agree. I can't do, you know, 2-hour weekly meetings. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, like in the past though, you know, and one of the things I was going to say about when we did have all that money come in from HUD, the Whitaker had a challenge because the chair had actually hired his wife. And there was some, it's not financial impropriety, but it was some questionable practices. And then also when we did have some grants in the past before, you know, we had a storyteller that never told us any stories. You know, we also ended up having some art that was a little, so it's not that we have any, there's nothing about your integrity that I am questioning 100%. What I'm saying is, like, there's some empirical data here that says, you know, if we're going to move in this direction, it might be better to have us as a corporation, you know, or us as a committee to do that. So that, like you're saying, like, you don't have to come back to the board for each itemized thing. You have your budget to work with, you know, and that's where we entrust you, Brad, Anand, all of the people that have the initiative and also the wherewithal to process these in a manageable way, you know. And I agree that it does need to move faster, but I think that what we're going to do now is set it up for the future, and it's going to make it so much easier for everybody. At one time, we got tired of talking about running a parking lot every week, so we wanted to have a business about that, you know. we've progressed quite a bit from running a parking lot.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that, Chris. And I thought I heard you ages ago when I was talking about, writing new grants again, because the WCC, received a grant recently from Lane Arts Council that we're using for Dubcat, but it's all, it's less than $2,000 and all of our expenditures are less than $200. So, it's really different from, this grant. But yeah, no, I definitely hear you about making sure we're up to snuff, which is, part of the reason I feel uncomfortable getting paid from this work. If I wanted to get paid, I would do this as my job. I'm here not to get financially compensated. So I think the hiring staff conversation is a really good one to have. And I think this grant can help launch us into being more focused on getting grants and getting people employed if that's something that we want to do. But I will write up everything for Saturday and propose some times on Sunday when the board can get together and vote. And I don't know if we're going to get everyone because everyone's not here for this conversation tonight. But I'll do my best to make sure that we're working together on that.
I had a quick question. How do you do the meeting Friday at 1:30? Is it on this Zoom page?
I will send you a note, Katie.
Okay, thank you.
And if there's anything I can do to help you and ease some of your burden, let me know.
Yeah, that it definitely will come into play, Katie. Or excuse me. Yeah, and it's not just you. I'm hoping that everyone involved in the call is going to be interested to help, and we are going to need help with the messaging component, the outreach component. It's just right now we got to figure out the money piece, and just to give everyone a heads up, any money we don't spend, we give right back to the state. So we don't need to feel bad about if we get $60,000 and we only spend 50 and we need to give 10,000 back. I think it's more important that we do a good job than we just spend all the money, because that'll send a strong signal to funders that we're working hard to solve.
Nice work, Ian.
Ian, did you want to talk about the second grant?
Oh yeah. So after all that, I think we should do it again. Let lightning strike twice, baby.
For punishment.
Yeah, so this is also from Oregon Health Authority, also has a very short turnaround time, also probably doesn't have the infrastructure put in place by the state, but we're already doing it once right now. I feel that it's going to be far easier to do this one because we already know what the state's expectations are. So I know almost nothing about it. I just found out about it today. And it's a COVID-19 response application for funds on addressing social determinants of health in tribal communities and communities of color. So what they're asking for is to help determine how the OHA will distribute these dollars, and the agency is seeking specific proposals of projects and initiatives to fund and any additional ideas for investment in the community to slow the spread and speed up the recovery and improve health. We've already got a great idea. It's called sanitary housing. Let's use this money to build a bunch of Conestoga huts. So here is the grant application right now. Examples of investments to improve COVID-19 outcomes in your communities include, but are not limited to, economic resources. So that could be thermometers, PPE, wraparound support and services, wage relief, childcare support, business consulting and technology needs, food insecurity and housing, food, bedding, transportation, home heating and cooling costs, and outdoor gear for situations of homelessness. Safety and violence, emergency motel vouchers for people experiencing child abuse or domestic violence, culturally and linguistically appropriate services that address domestic violence, and social life skills programs for parents. The funding is intended to be of service and support to the health and people in Oregon, particularly people diagnosed with or at higher risk for COVID-19. I feel like we could just focus on the homeless and maybe renters who are at risk of eviction. But I think if we just focused on the homeless and just really, focused in on Conestoga Huts specifically, and reached out to community supported shelters, and they would be eligible for this grant too. It's due also on Monday. But I mean, from the grant that we wrote previously, I mean, we could just take whole sections of it and then move it over to this one.
Would
I wouldn't be opposed to like looking into ways for providing rent assistance for people that have like experienced economic hardship in the Whitaker, like, and are at risk of losing their housing. Maybe like a dual pronged approach of like, how much is the grant for?
There's no information on that.
Oh.
Is it designated for Native or people of color?
So it's,
I mean, I was just reading.
no, yes and no. So it's designed, it's prioritizing tribal communities and communities of color, but it's intended to be of service to and support the health of people who are diagnosed with or at higher risk of COVID-19 and associated complications due to longstanding social and health inequities. So that's why I think prioritizing the unhoused is so key.
What about people? I guess disabled people aren't working out of work, but I'm just thinking there's a lot of like, I don't know, affected neighbors that are working class that, or like restaurant workers or like people that are the frontline people serving the communities, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you at all. Yeah, it's just harder to do. I don't know how to how to get people money for rental assistance, and also we would need like complex, financial accounting to be able to transfer money over. If it was just to build like 100 Conestoga huts, I mean, we could do that.
Yeah, I think that's a better idea, Ian. Easier to manage.
Well, what if we partnered with an organization that already does it? I know that there's a number of different organizations that exist in Eugene. I mean, I could look into it and report back what I find. If we were building Conestoga huts from nothing, then like the fact that we're able to connect with somebody that's already doing it is what makes it easy for us, or one of the reasons that makes it easy for us, because we're able to get all the information. We're able to figure out like what to do with it. But I mean, if we're connecting with an organization, I think it's just as important. I mean, it might be easier, but I think it's just as important to like actually approach it from both ways, because it doesn't matter how many like houses we build if there's more people ending up on the streets because of COVID.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all, Annika. I see that as being a lot of work that I can't do. And that I look at Katie too, and I'm just like thinking about how much of a headache it would be for the treasurer and how much work it would be for Katie to be able to monitor and administer that funding. I think it's really important. And yeah, I totally support you if you wanted to spend the time to research what organizations are doing fund disbursement. Just remember what it was like for those $500 checks, right? I mean, it was a fucking mess.
Yeah, it was savage. It was barbaric.
If you don't have the time. If you had the time, it would be different. But right now, you don't have the time. If you've got to get a grant in by Monday,
yeah,
you don't
and I would also
research the other end.
I would hate to draw away from a pool that would take money away from a tribal or people of color, maybe, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I do know that the houseless community is a demographic that is underserved, but if we have such little time, we don't have the infrastructure in place, we're already trying to institute our first loan. I mean, maybe not take on more than we can chew.
I mean, we've already taken on more than we can chew. Clearly,
right.
clearly, we're
chewing more. Do we want to make it even worse, or you know what I'm saying?
I mean, like, I just spent the last 45 minutes complaining about how shitty things are, and I'm the one like suggesting we need to lean into the shittiness. We need if we're in fifth gear, like going to sixth, because like why not? I mean, this grant prioritizes communities of color and indigenous communities because they should be prioritized. If we're not going to be selected, if the state says no, you're not addressing communities of color and indigenous populations, like, so be it. But I think there's a tremendous opportunity here for us to get like 100 Conestoga huts built. And come to the city saying, look, we've got all the Conestoga huts built.
Now you have to find a place to put them.
Yeah.
That's going to be hard.
No.
Well, do we just need to send in Thea? She's like Delta Force.
So I just found out that we're talking to the wrong people, but that's for next week's discussion. But why do you not throw that paint on the wall and see what happens? Jackson Pollock made millions by throwing paint on the wall.
Oh my goodness, what an analogy, Thea.
And if they don't accept it, they don't accept it. But if you say, hey, we want to build Conestoga huts to house people.
Well, we do. I mean.
And Ian's willing to do the work. Sorry, Ian. I'll buy you a bottle of wine. A good one.
Yeah, I was about to say, it better be expensive.
Oh my God.
Are you a red or a white?
So these things are being recorded, you know. All right,
This is
y'all.
only pay.
Hey, let's get back to this. So
I'm not a board member, so I can't vote, but I think you guys should do it.
I think we need to vote on it, and I think Sunday, since we're already voting on things, why not? I'll bring bring a grant application. It's the same thing that we applied for before. Literally, I could show you the questions that are in here. The state doesn't know what it's doing. The state's worried about getting people infected with COVID.
I know.
The state is so worried.
Yeah.
You're going to copy and paste, right, Ian?
Yeah. I mean, for the most part. I
Okay.
mean, there's going to be some questions that are different. Like, you know, I'll show you the questions. You know, what health-related needs does your community have as a result of COVID-19? Same question as the one before.
Right.
How will you meet these needs with CFR funds? Same question as before. Describe the specific proposal. That one's different. The experience we have, same question as before. Establish relationships, same question as before. So how do you plan to meet the needs? Same question as the one before. Optional question. Any ideas? Sure, we got plenty of ideas. There's no shortage of ideas. One new question. That's what the application is. They don't know what they're doing. They're not even giving it an amount. The state is getting millions of dollars from the federal government under the CARES Act and is so worried about COVID-19 that they are Jackson Pollocking millions of dollars.
I don't know. This is so crazy. We have so many people on the streets, and the way the grants are being written, we can't house people, but we can give them a mask. We can build Conestoga huts, but we don't have a place to put them. So insane. It's so insane.
I'll get you the place to put them.
What's that?
I'll get you the place to put them.
All right, Stephen.
As Chris knows, a friend of ours got evicted 2 or 3 days ago, and we gave him a tent and a small amount of money, and he's sleeping by the river, or was sleeping by the river 2 or 3 nights. Now he's going to try and find a place to put his tent.
Yeah, I mean, these are the realities of the situation.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if we could use this money to start building some houses or finagle it in any way, then, I mean, it would be irresponsible of us not to try to do it. You know, there's so much need here. So I guess we'll have a vote on Sunday.
Yep.
All right, cool. Well, thank you.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah, and you have luck on your side right now, so go with it. I like just starting where the basic is.
Luck and nervous sweating.
It's
Those
okay.
are the things I have
You're
on my
cleansing. You're cleansing.
So Ian, are you a red or white wine drinker? You haven't told me yet.
Oh, definitely both. I like Oregon Pinots. I just like to mix the red and the white together, you know? As I'm trying. Yeah, that's how I make rosé. But yeah, no.
Talking about wine.
Red or white.
Come on now. All right, y'all.
I have a question for Annika.
Yeah. Hi, Christy.
I missed
Well,
the meeting.
I'm out. Bye.
I missed the meeting last week, and I'm wondering how I can see the video, the recording of it.
I don't.
I searched, I can't find it. If this is our minutes, then they should somehow be available.
I mean, what I've been telling people is reach out to me and I can get them to you. I'm still working on a method for getting them up and publicly, just because uploading and putting videos up is a really heavy load on my computer. I think
Margaret Steinbrenner said she could do that for you.
Did
she ever contact?
She did. The issue, I need to get a hold of her. I think that what I'm going to try and do, instead of putting them on, because the other thing is that I don't think WordPress can handle it, because that's where our website is hosted right now. So what I was thinking about doing is uploading them to YouTube and then sharing YouTube links or embedding YouTube videos, and I think that might work a little smoother. I just have been pretty busy so far this week. But I'm going to try and get it hopefully up by this weekend or by next week. But yeah.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Well, it's 9:01. Without further ado, thank you, everyone.
Good night.
All right.
Chris hit unrecord.
Hold on.